For those that you can hear me, we'll start our city council meeting in just a moment. I want to welcome Noel Rodriguez from the school board tonight, and I'm going to ask you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance in a few moments, Noel, if you're willing. Thank you. All right. Good evening, everyone. We've reached the hour of 6 o'clock. It is March 16, 2021, and this is the City Council meeting of the City of Woodland. We welcome you to join us. We are meeting tonight pursuant to the Governor's executive order that allows us to hold our meeting virtually by electronic teleconference. We welcome participation from the public. We welcome participation from the public, and we can have that participation in any number of ways. And the way to find out how to do it is to go to our city website, cityofwoodland.org, and hit on the button Agendas and Meetings. And on the agenda, hit tonight's agenda, and you'll find instructions for how to participate. So again, we welcome your input. With that, we'll proceed. Acknowledge that all 5 members of the meeting of the council are present, but I would think it's appropriate to have our clerk call the roll call. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Stallard. Mayor Pro Tem Vega.
Present.
Councilmember Fernandez.
Present.
Councilmember Garcia Cadena.
Present.
Councilmember Landsberg.
Present.
Mayor Stallard.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are all here tonight. We'll now proceed to the Pledge of Allegiance. Noel Rodriguez, our member, one of our new members of the school board. Yes, we can hear you. Would you kindly lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Trustee Rodriguez. We're honored to have you with us tonight.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
All right. So we will now proceed to communications. Madam Clerk, is there any member of the public wishing to address the City Council this evening on a subject not otherwise on our agenda?
No, not under public comment.
All right, thank you. Well, that will allow us to proceed to item G, Council and Staff Communications. And we'll begin with Councilwoman Cadena Garcia.
Hello, thank you. Good evening. And I wanted to say that I really appreciated hearing from Chief Caff this morning. He reached out to discuss the efforts and the actions that the Woodland Police Department has been making to mitigate the recent shootings that have been taking place. And it was really nice to hear the plan that they have in place and how we're dealing with that. I had the opportunity last week to tour the new East Beamer shelter and hear about the future plans there. And I also have been participating in the weekly 150th anniversary celebration for Woodland meetings. And I think we're going to have a really great plan in place soon to celebrate Woodland and our past and our future and all the great things that have happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Member Garcia Cadena. Council Member Vicky Fernandez.
Thank you, Mayor Stallard. I just wanted to thank our Community Development Department. A little late, I'm sorry I didn't publicly thank you for our tour and overview of your department on February 18th. So thank you to Brent Meyer, Lynn Johnson, Erica Baumgardner, Cindy Norris, Ed, I'm going to say your name probably wrong, Wyzensky, Joel Lavano, Katie Wenzel, Tim Bush, Ken Lohman, Stephen Coyle. So thank you for all the information that you provided for Council Mayor Pro Tem Vega and myself back on February 18th. So thank you for your time. Also attended the Yellow Solano Air Quality Management District meeting this last week, and just wanted to remind our departments and community members that there is grant funding available from the Yellow Solano Air Quality Management District for our community. And there's approximately $60,000 grants, a $60,000 amount available for our county. So if there is some projects or needs that you may have that would help the air quality in our community, please look into the application and the form that's available through the Air Management District, or I also forwarded to our city manager, Ken Hyatt. So maybe there is some information that you might need. They're doing a workshop on March 25th if you plan to apply. So I believe they contributed to or paid for our electric lawnmower last year. So thank you to Mayor Stallard, who was on the committee before. And there's various different agencies and groups throughout our community that they have given grants to. So please take advantage of that opportunity. Also attended on March 11th, a town hall meeting with Congressman John Garamendi. I was listening in on an educational town hall with his district educational community department supervisors for the various counties. So it was interesting to see the impacts of the COVID relief package and how it'll affect our local educational agencies. Also attended the Yellow County, the Woodland 3x2x2x1 with our also educational leaders, and they were going to be presenting the Promise program to their board at Woodland Community College, and they were grateful for the partnership that they have with the city of Woodland, and discussed again the Asian American racist sentiment throughout our communities, and are working collaboratively to address some of these issues and needs also. And so thank you. I think that's it for now.
Thank you, Councilmember Fernandez. Councilmember Myra Vega.
Thank you, Mayor Stallard. So today, for my report out, I'm going to be honoring some of our women leaders that are on our staff. So I just want to thank Chief Cap and Chief Zane with providing these two bios for these two wonderful women. So I'm going to read their bios. I would like the council and our community members to help me celebrate Women's History Month and all of the women leaders that we have in our community. So we have Fire Captain Asha Whipple. So Asha grew up in rural Nevada County. Asha knew from an early age that she wanted to be a firefighter, becoming a fire explorer at the age of 16. So Asha was raised by a single mother who was working 2 jobs to support her young family. This gave Asha a lot of freedom and internal drive. After graduating, she enrolled at UC Davis, where she became a student resident firefighter while working on her bachelor's degree. Once graduated, Asha began applying for firefighter positions in the fire service, a very competitive field. Once graduated, she began applying for a firefighter position in the fire service. Sorry, that was a repeat. So in 2005, Asha was hired by the city of Woodland as a firefighter. So in 2016, Captain Whipple was promoted to the rank of engineer. In 2019, Asha was the first female in our organization to obtain the rank of captain. So, I'd like to pause there. She has an amazing story. One of the things that she highlights as why she loves what she does is that she has, this is a quote, "One of the greatest aspects of being a female in the fire service is the opportunity it gives me to empower girls to break the mold." Sounds like Asha spends some of her free time mentoring young women who aspire to become firefighters. So that is, I just want to celebrate that. I think it's important that little girls and boys see all the power that women pack and can bring along in any role. So now I'm going to move on and tell you a little bit about Sergeant Victoria Danzel. So she has served in Woodland for 20 years and has made an impact both within the department and in the community. So she has had many, served in various capacities within the department. So to name a few, school resource officer, crisis negotiator, and she currently oversees our homeless outreach street team and internal affairs. So one of the quotes that she provided as to why she loves working for the police department is, "I love working at the Woodland Police Department because we truly are a family. We help and support each other out during trying and good times. I like that the community cares about us. I also like how many different opportunities we have at the Woodland Police Department." So please help me in celebrating these two wonderful women in uniform and the rest of our women leaders. That'll be it, Mayor Sullard. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Councilmember Vega. If this were normal times, we'd be meeting here in the chambers and we'd have a presentation of a nice resolution commending Women's History Month. We could celebrate these women in person. So let's not forget that for next year, okay? All right, Council Member Rich Landsberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Besides my regular council assignment meetings, Council Member Garcia Cadena and I have been meeting with a great group of residents regarding Woodland's 150th sesquicentennial celebration. We look forward to getting information to the rest of the council and to staff about our plans for Woodland over the next several months. We have some very good ideas. We have some great, tremendous committee members, residents of our community who with great ideas. And I look forward to getting those out real soon. Mr. Mayor, I would also like to encourage our residents in Woodland to consider forming a neighborhood watch group in their residential areas. I am aware that the police department and particularly Morgan Snedeker, who runs the neighborhood watch program, is out there looking for groups to start in their areas. The chief sent a map out about the neighborhood watch programs in our city, and we could use some more. So I encourage folks to think about protecting your little area, your little nest, by forming a neighborhood watch program. And Morgan Snedeker and the rest of the police department would be very eager to help you establish that and keep your group growing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Landsberg. It's great advice. It might be nice if the police staff, Mr. Snedeker, let us know some of the areas where we're deficient, where he would like to see them formed, and perhaps through our own relationships, we can identify people who live in those neighborhoods. All right, my turn. I first of all want to thank the school board for the courtesy of allowing a dialogue with our council for an hour out of their meeting last Thursday. And Trustee Rodriguez, I hope you'll take that thanks back to your board. We all want to see those schools open again. I know you do too, and we're here to help any way we can. Councilmember Vega commented on the fact that we did that shows the community that we are collaborating and working together, which is the way it ought to be in a community like Woodland. I also want to celebrate the fact that our movie theater opened a couple of Fridays ago. We got to go see the new Frances McDermott movie, and it was so enjoyable to be there. And it's interesting to note that out of more than 120 screens owned by Cinema West, our Woodland screens were the first to go back online and may yet be the only ones in that company or any company in Northern California at this point. So it was a nice thing. And the owner, Dave Corkle commented how great it was for him to be able to open his theaters in Woodland at the top of the line. But having said that, I hope everybody remembers, keep wearing your masks, do these simple things that will help us put this scourge behind us. And please, if you have the opportunity, get vaccinated. It's not a big imposition. It's easy. And, it's showing the fact that it has a positive effect in reduced numbers. Yolo County was the first red county, I believe, in the Sacramento region. Placer followed quickly. And we're on track, I think, to get to orange, but the city manager will be reporting on that shortly. I just want to say, Tanya Garcia Cadena, you joined our council on February 2nd. It's just a few weeks ago, but you're already such an important part of our team. And we just couldn't be more grateful and to have you on this council. So bless your heart. We're glad you're here.
Thank you, Mayor Stallard.
That's all right. I mean, it feels like you've always been here, doesn't it? I also urge everyone in the community to support our local businesses. They're certainly not out of the woods either. And thankfully, the federal relief package is going to help a lot of people and a lot of businesses as these other programs have been doing. But it isn't making up for everything that has been lost by our restaurants, by our merchants. And so please, if you have the ability, feel free to spend a little money in these places. And also, next item, I'd love, if you are paying flood insurance, I would sure love to hear from you. We're trying to understand more the impact of our flooding situation, and we want our residents, particularly in our north area that are most impacted, to be participating in our work towards a flood solution. I also want to thank the Woodland Tree Foundation for hosting another great Arbor Day tree planting. 50 trees were planted in at least 4 of our parks. And they also were part of a poetry reading at the Shakespeare tree, which is a wonderful tree, 104-year-old oak in City Park that occurred on March 7th. Both Councilmember Landsberg and I represent our city at the Woodland Davis Clean Water Agency. And we just have to share with our colleagues that our water situation is somewhat critical. This has been designated a Shasta critical year, which means the 10,000 acre feet of water we normally take out of the Sacramento River has been reduced to 7,500 acre feet. We are arranging backup water sources for us, but I hope everybody's taken to heart the need to be careful in their use of water. Last thing I will say is that I was interviewed by 2 radio stations in the last week. One of them, KFBK, wanted to know how we were dealing with COVID, and I was able to share some of the things I've said tonight. But it's nice to see Woodland being called out on the local radio stations. For my mayor's minute tonight, I just want to again affirm how blown away I am by the consistent goodness of people in the Woodland community. Sure, we have challenges. Every place has challenges, but just look around and see all the good things that are going on. The St. Baldrick's event held at Father Patty's this last weekend. Sergeant Ted Ruiz from the police department did such a wonderful job organizing it, raising almost 30,000 when we started expecting only 5. And Councilmember Rich Landsberg, what a great support you were getting in there and having it all shaved off. And that's why he's wearing a hat tonight, folks. He's covering that beautiful dome of his. But thank you, Rich, for your leadership there. And I also want to call out Jay Kimura from our city staff. Thank you, Rich. Jay Kimura, he's featured on I think the front page of the Democrat today. He hadn't shaved, he hadn't had his hair cut once during COVID. So he was down beyond his shoulders, and he cut it all off for the cause of helping kids recover from cancer and cancer research. So good for all these people, but not just Ted and all those people working on that. We had the American Legion served 190 corned beef dinners as a fundraiser. Rotary and Lions have held dinners. And all of this is to raise money to go back into the community to help those in need. And then Dignity Health, have been doing 1,000 vaccines a day at the Community and Senior Center. And then the Community Services Department creating a program for children so that they could shelter in place at a safe place and do their off-site learning as students in our schools because their parents have to work. So we've been caring for students at our Community and Senior Center as well. Those are all wonderful things. I'm so grateful. I hope everybody is. Mr. Manager, your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, and great updates across the board from the council. So it's good to see that we're keeping you guys busy and active. But a couple quick things to add just for the council and the public to be aware of. The Community Services Department will be holding 2 opportunities for public input on park upgrades, specifically replacement of play structures, both at Everman Park. They'll be holding a Zoom public meeting on March 18th from 6 to 7 p.m. And then followed on March 24th with a public meeting to seek input on play structure equipment at Trainham Park, also from 6 to 7 p.m. And then also wanted to share with the council that the county has finalized, and I believe now maybe has even formally released their residential renter assistance program. They received a significant amount of funding from the state's program to provide assistance to both renters as well as landlords that have had impacts financially during the pandemic. Formerly, the council had actually allocated some of our CDBG funding to go towards a smaller program. We ended up partnering with the county and allowing them to move forward with a much larger program. So we'll be helping to push that out throughout the county and here in Woodland as well. And then quickly on the long range calendar, the next meeting, April 6th, will feature a spring budget workshop. So this will launch the council and the community through the budget process before adoption in June. So we will be providing council an update on where we stand financially, as well as provide some initial discussion around how we will be seeking some one-time allocation this year, and specifically given President Biden's signing of the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan last week, which does provide local relief to cities. In our case, we expect to receive up to just shy of $13 million potentially in 2 tranches. So we will be understanding a little bit better what the parameters are around that funding, and as part of the workshop on the 6th, providing the council an opportunity to begin to provide some feedback and discussion around how we want to invest those one-time dollars. And then lastly, also on the 6th, we had a meeting this afternoon with our consultants for the Spring Lake Parks, our landscape architect consultants. We'll be bringing their contract forward on April 6th that will begin a process which we'll share with you over the course of late spring, summer to seek input from the community out in Spring Lake for how to build out the balance of the remaining parks that we hope to go into construction as early as next year. So that concludes my remarks. I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. We can now move on to item H, presentations. And this is an opportunity for us to hear what the Woodland Public Library annual report has to offer for fiscal year 2020. And before I call upon our manager and our librarian to participate, I'd like to mention that the library came up a few times in our conversation with the Board of Trustees for the school district, because they've been doing such a good job reaching out to you during the pandemic. So Ken, do you want to introduce it, or should we go right to Greta?
Yeah, well, let me just introduce and just acknowledge how fortunate we are as a community to have our own library, and acknowledge the great work that Greta and the board does to serve our community, and particularly during this past year, right? It just showed how fortunate we are to have the talent within the library staff over there, and fortunate to have Greta and the leadership on her board. So annually, we give an opportunity for Greta and her board to present to the council all the great work that they've been doing and give us a forecast for the exciting things ahead. So with that, I will hand it over to Mr. Rodriguez, as well as Rita, to walk through the presentation.
I'm almost embarrassed to forget that Noel Rodriguez is on our that's on our library board as well.
No problem, no problem.
Okay, please proceed, Greta.
Yes, I'm actually going to say a few words before Greta gives her presentation. So can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good evening, Mayor Stallard, City Council members, City Manager Ken Hyatt. I'm Noel Rodriguez, President of the Woodland Public Library Board of Trustees. Our other trustees are Dr. John Jackson, Maureen King, Allison Borkowska, and Hortensia Hernandez. They may be joining us here tonight. Also tonight, as we've already mentioned, is our library director, Greta Galindo. Now, it seems it's been quite some time since we've been here, and that's because it has been quite a long time. The library, like the rest of our community, has had to adjust to COVID and the regulations which were enacted for the public safety and our staff safety. During this past year, as COVID began to develop into a serious matter, our library quickly adapted to the safety requirements, used innovative solutions, and found a way to meet the community's needs. Now, it may not seem apparent now, but very early on in COVID, masks were in short supply, including the shields used by hospital workers and first responders. The library's Square One quickly adapted and provided 1,200 fabric face masks and 200 face shields. They were distributed to our local hospital, to the police department, local businesses, and farm workers to meet a critical need in our diverse community, an accomplishment that the Library Board of Trustees is very proud of. As we move to address COVID challenges, we asked our staff to quickly become proficient in using social media and change to a model which would provide services to our patrons using virtual programming. Whether it was weekly bilingual virtual readings to our community's youth, developing curbside pickups, a shift to featuring our online services, engaging our teens in a virtual world, continuing our summer reading programs, or doing direct outreach to our communities and school by using our book buy capabilities, or whether it was opening an outdoor version of our library during our local farmers market. Our library found ways to stay connected to our patrons and to help our community get through our collective COVID experience. Now, while it's true that some of our numbers don't compare to last year's numbers, but this is not a year that should be looked upon strictly by the numbers. The library staff worked through a very dynamic time that required many changes in how our services were delivered. It was in understanding the challenges that were before us that the library board gave its full support to our director to adapt. This included transforming our programs into a virtual medium, including changes in staffing levels and delivery of programming while keeping our staff safe and while continuing to serve the community. The board also made a decision to hold off creating new goals for the library's new year until the effects of COVID were at a better level. One of the board's decisions was to hold off until March 2021, this month, to practically begin planning and adjusting goals along with our director once we had a better idea of the ongoing COVID conditions. Currently, as we look to a hopeful new phase in regards to COVID, the board and our director will now be able to consider what programming adjustments can be made to help our families and community with the learning loss caused by the school closure and virtual education. We now have an opportunity to take into consideration the needs of our families and to uplift and support them in their ongoing experience with our COVID environment. The board is very proud of our staff's ability to stay resilient and stay focused on meeting the needs of our community despite working under historically difficult conditions. And so we look forward to the challenge of continuing to adapt, innovate, and meet the needs of our patrons and larger community. And now I'd like to hand things over to our library director, Greta Galindo.
Thank you, Noel.
Thank you, Noel. It was a fantastic introduction. I really appreciate it. Good evening, Mayor and council members. It's been, as Noel said, just over a year since I presented the last library's annual report. In many ways, the report would have been similar to the year before. I think it's important to remember in this report that 3/4 of the year that I am presenting were prior to the pandemic. So I will present, what we call our normal times. Last year was probably the most normal time year that we had ever since I've got here 8 years ago. We've been working very hard to expand and grow program. And last year, I would say, was probably our most standardized year where we realized what our goals are and what programming we deliver the strongest and where our commitments are. And so it was our most refined year as far as what we offered to the public. And then we had the pandemic, but I'm going to back it up a little bit and talk about prior to that. So I will share my screen. Let's give this a try. Okay. Maybe not.
I love the picture of the cat faces, by the way, with the masks on.
Oh,
Those are
it's coming.
Henrietta's tips.
Oh, I thought I had this all set up, so I apologize. Let me try it again. Basic. Okay. I will get rid of us on the side so we don't have to look at ourselves. There we go. So here's the annual report for 2019-2020. There's our famous library cat, Henrietta. Part of our last year with the pandemic was our presence on social media, and Henrietta was part of that. And I should note that she is the reason for so many likes. One of our TikTok posts had 26,000 likes, and all because of the cat. So up until March of 2019 or to 2020, library services were pretty much what they had always had been. So here's just an overview of the numbers of the traditional statistics that we capture. We capture two types of data. We capture outcomes and output. The annual report focuses on output data, which is the quantity of programs and the numbers of attendance or engagement. Since the passage of Measure J, all library programming is supported by Measure J, and so we include our outcome data in our Measure J report. So outcomes like following a Square One program, did you learn anything? Or following an early literacy program, are you more likely to read to your child at home? Those are indicators that we put in our Measure J report. So in this, I just want you aware that in this report, it is strictly output numbers. So I don't have to repeat it here for you guys. As you can see, we lost about a quarter of the year in our programming, but there are some things that we didn't lose a quarter of in attendance. You know, even though our program attendance went down, it didn't drop an entire 25% when you compare year to year. So had it been a regular year, I think we would have been able to report growth in that. The big change in library card holders is due to the increase in e-cards that were distributed in that last quarter of the year due to the pandemic. So we were available to the public by phone, over the, you know, by email, and people could request an e-card by email, and then they would have immediate access to our e-resources and our e-books. So that is the reason for the jump in library card numbers. So our focus is for community impact, our early literacy, community engagement, outreach, bringing the library to the community, and education and lifelong learning. These are some of the highlights of our, what we now call our traditional programming here at the library. Read and play story times. I think you guys are aware of our teen advisory board. We find them to be a critical component of our library programming. Not only do we feel that we help support these teens in their journey, but also they give us really important feedback as we plan program for other teams. So it works for full circle for us. We are continuing our first grade library card outreach. And also in Square One, we give class visits for third graders. So that's what we've been doing in the past year, and really proud of the numbers. Our book giveaways are very popular. We buy books for about 17 cents a book. And this is supported by the Friends of the Library and the library board. So when you are able to purchase books by the pallet and they cost 17 cents, it's very easy to give them out to kids for their own personal libraries. And so after last year, which I think, as you can see all of the numbers in the report, I think it is, the majority of this is to talk about the COVID-19 response. And our priorities in that response were supporting the community, connecting with children and families, and teen engagement. And as Noelle said, staff had to shift very quickly. When we closed in March, within the next week, we had story times up on the website through YouTube and our Instagram TV channel called ITV, and also on Facebook the very next week. We were getting ready. We had at-home craft programs that we were posting. We were connecting people to our ebooks through our website and through social media. And we revamped our whole website, in a very short amount of time, in a couple of days, to be able to provide up-to-date COVID-19 information with links to validated sources. We wanted our website and our social media present to be a place that had accurate information. Along with that, our staff did get busy in square one producing PPE. As we kind of settled in and realized it was going to go on longer than the first 2 weeks, we worked to increase our virtual programming and had after school type programming with performers. For parents, we had bingo nights and family paint nights, and anything that we did in-house, we tried to think of a way to do virtually. We even had our girls who code. They met through Zoom, and our teen advisory board met through Zoom as well. So any way that we were able to, staff was really great at doing that very quickly and getting it going. So we feel successful about that. 14,000 downloads of e-content in 3 months shows that people really did respond to what we were offering. And we know we got new patrons through this. The other part of summer with the library is that we continued our summer reading program with reading challenges for all ages and our virtual events. As I mentioned before, bingo nights and paint nights. And at this point, we were able to have curbside delivery. So in June, we've shifted to curbside delivery and put out our weekly craft kits, the paint night kits, the STEM kits, anything that we felt we could do in-house. Like I said, we wanted to be able to take out to the public. But it's very important to me that if we offer a program online, that the people that are involved in it are able to participate. And that does mean that we do give out these kits. We didn't want to put out like a craft program and you can't participate because you don't have the supplies at home. It's very important to me that the children do have the supplies at home to do the crafts or to do the science experiments that we provided over the summer. So that was a great opportunity for our teen advisory board members to be able to come in with their masks on, social distancing, and build the kits for all of the teams that we delivered, for all the children that we delivered curbside. It was a very successful summer reading program being virtual. 2,500 people attending our virtual events over the summer is very close to the numbers that we would have had in person. So we were pleased with those results. One of the things we also did while we were closed is, and I don't have a slide on this one, is our spaces. So we were able to take advantage of the closure and recarpet the entire library, which is something that we had been working on within our facilities master plan. We also removed all of the shelving in the Carnegie area, all of the metal tall shelving, and replaced it with wood shelving that's much lower to improve our sight lines and allow a lot more natural light in the building. So that was kind of one of the few bonuses to being closed, is that we were able to make a lot of physical changes without disrupting our services, because our services were already massively disrupted. So we were pleased we were able to do that. And now that we are reopened by appointment, it looks beautiful inside, and I encourage any of you guys to make an appointment and come in. So this is where we are now. We are open by appointment for browsing, computer use, and Square One. We are still continuing with curbside delivery as well. We're open 6 hours a day. Part of that has to do with the way that we're staffed. And right now we're still staffed in 2 cohorts, but once everybody's vaccinated, we'll be able to make changes with that. And our virtual programming that we started in March just continues on with the story times and the teen events. We did add a adult book club. It has come back, as well as we're kicking off a graphic novel book club. We've added in a paint night in Spanish, and we continue any reading challenge that we can make up, we will, so that we can engage our kids as much as possible. So right now we have the In-N-Out Burger Challenge, where you read 5 books and you get a free burger. It's something people ask for every single year. So that one, you can get up to 3 burgers with that one. So that is where we are right now. As I said earlier, social media was a big part of what we did. And it was also a big part for my staff to feel like they were doing something a little bit fun in times that were really kind of difficult. And, we wanted to be a bright spot for people in our lives. So they did a lot of videos. And this is one of the first ones that they made and posted when we were able to open for curbside. So I'm gonna have you guys watch it. It's pretty short. They love their dinosaur costumes. It's made, you look for those small things that catch people's eyes, and these definitely have done it. We've had more traffic to our Facebook and Instagram since we started making videos and having staff in costume. But it's just a fun way to engage the public and keep the interest high in what we're doing here. When we first started, we did quarantine books for 96 hours, but new studies have shown that we only have to do it for 24. So we're back to a 24-hour quarantine, which is really great. It gets the books back into people's hands more quickly. That's not what I want to do. What's that? So what is next for the library? Right now, we will continue while we're in the red with our current schedule. And what we're looking to is a return to regular open hours. We really blocked out our type of programming into three sections: what we can do inside, what we can do virtually, and what we can do outside. So inside is browsing, computer usage. Square One is open right now by appointment for people that have already used Square One and understood how to use it. But once we're able to reopen it, we will be able to resume one-on-one teaching of the equipment. And then we'll have small group programs with registration. One of the difficulties with inside programming is that our story times usually have 30, 40 people cramming upstairs into our small children's area, and we will have to start requiring registration in order to have the appropriate numbers inside the library. Our virtual programs will continue for as long as they need to. And then outside, once the farmers market starts and we're having some things going on outside, we'll have story times, craft programs, performers during the summer, and we'll keep curbside delivery. I suspect that curbside delivery will be something that stays even post-pandemic. It's really popular for people to drive up and get their holds, so it's not a problem for us to continue that. I think the staff is really anxious to return to our regular hours and get back to what we now call our traditional programming. We know we have a long road ahead to get to that point where we're fully open, but we hope that our incremental approach is the safe way and the best way for us to connect with our community. And that is the end of my overview of our annual report, and I'm welcome to any questions.
Well, thank you very much, Rita, for that most comprehensive overview. It's amazing what you all have been able to accomplish. I know you don't have a large staff, so it's pretty cool that you can accomplish so much. Colleagues, are there questions of our library folks? Council Member Garcia Cadena.
Yep. Sorry about that. The phone's ringing.
It happened.
Hopefully someone else gets it. Sorry, 1 minute.
Does anyone else want to proceed with a question while we're waiting for Tanya?
Mr. Mayor, I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Okay, if you could hold it a minute, Vicky has a question.
Okay.
No, I was just going to make a comment, so go ahead.
Okay.
Well, Tanya's back, so how about we start back with Tanya?
Yes,
please?
okay. Thank you, Rita and Noel, a wonderful presentation. I do have two questions. Regarding the lower shelving that brings in more light, it looks beautiful. When Greta showed me when I had my orientation, but does that affect the volume of books that are now available on the shelves? Or were you able to accommodate the same number of books just in a different way?
Actually, we were able to accommodate the same number of books because we added 2 sections of shelving in a spot that wasn't there previously. So we did, and we did a lot of shifting, but we really didn't have to get rid of any books, which is really nice. Yeah.
Great. And then my second question, you said performers in the summer. What type of performers do you have? I'm curious. I'm interested.
Well, I mean, the virtual performers were much the same. We had like the Bubble Lady and we had musicians. This summer, I know we have a drumming program that's going to come virtually where we're going to give out kits so kids can participate at home with their own drums. I'm sure the magician will be coming back. So it is like traditional summer reading program types of performers where with the virtual component, we just want to be able to have something at home that the kids can interact with while they're watching the performance.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, I want to praise you all for your ability to so quickly pivot and take things online. My youngest is a member of TAB, and she was so excited to be able to go and prepare kits because she was actually out of the house. So, great job. You guys have just done a wonderful job.
Thank you, Councilmember Garcia Cadena. Let's go to Rich Landsberg next, and then we'll get to Vicky Fernandez after Rich. Rich?
I just wanted you to know that Greta and her staff are part of our 150th committee, and the library is going to be a very important integral part of our festivities and celebration because they've been an integral part of this community since 1905. So I want to make sure you recognize that the library will be play an important part in our festivities.
Thank you, Rich. And it might be worth noting too, I think we have the last functional Carnegie Library in California, if I'm not mistaken. And I know I'll be corrected if I am, but the fact is that true?
Yeah, there's some that say we're like the longest continuously operating library on the West Coast. So yeah.
So we actually saved the shell when we added the major addition. So that's a pretty cool fact as well. Okay, Councilmember Fernandez.
Again, I just wanted to thank you both, Library Board President Noel Rodriguez and Greta, for your tremendous work in the library. And it's been interesting to learn more about all the different programming that you provide for our community, and commend you for adjusting to 2020 and the COVID pandemic and addressing the needs of our community there also. So thank you again, and I appreciate all your efforts and work within the library. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fernandez. And Councilmember Vega, I see your hand up.
So Greta and Noel, thank you so much for being here tonight and for sharing all the great things that the library is doing. And I just want to encourage you to keep some of the programming. So you mentioned some of these I guess pickup drive-through setups are working well. I can speak on behalf of my family. That's kind of the way we do things nowadays, groceries and just grab and go. It's just really, really helpful. So I would encourage you to continue to keep some of these things that are part of our new world. I'd also like to encourage, as things are fluidly changing with students going back to school and schedules changing, summer programming, to reach out to the families in our community to see what hours programs are interested in. And I know you'll be nimble in implementing the programs that accommodate the changing lives of our families. So Thank you. Thank you so much for what you do. One of the programs that really impressed me was if you wanted to call in and put in an order, somebody would sort for books of particular interest. So I wanted books about Mexico and in Spanish for my toddler. And I got this bag of wonderful books that we enjoyed. So that customization is really, really amazing, especially as kids are working on certain projects or families just want to explore new topics. So thank you so much. That'll be all. Thank you, Mayor Stallard.
Thank you, Council Member Vega. I have a couple of questions. And Noel, recall that with our meeting with the trustees, his colleague, Trustee Candace Fowler, asked us about the makerspace, Square One, because that's a big favorite with her family. When do you expect it to be available to the public once again?
It is open by appointment, the same hours that the library is open. So it is open to people that have already been in Square One, like I said, but once we resume, and I'm pretty sure when we get to Orange, we'll have it open to new users, make it available.
Well, thank you. And I hope that Noel will pass that along to Trustee Fowler so that she can get back there and enjoy it again with her daughters. My second question, would you do that? Thank you. My second question is, do we have a new teen librarian yet?
Not yet, but we're getting there. We're past the panel, the first interview process. So we're closer than we have been. So we're really excited. I'm hoping to have a new teen librarian in place prior to summer reading, since that's like one of the biggest parts of our year. And it has been, with such a small staff, when you are one person down, it's truly impactful. So it will be great to have that position filled.
Thank you. For the benefit of the community, it'll be a wonderful thing. Also, I'd just like to add in a comment, and that is in your presentation materials, you show that 25% of your budget is now coming from Measure J and Measure R. And I just want to point that out to the community so that they know that all of these good things are happening because of their generosity in giving us that additional quarter-cent sales tax that would help us keep that library open more days a week and do these wonderful things for our teens and youth and others. So I wanted to make sure we mentioned that. Well,
yes,
Mayor
Stallard, I just wanted to second that remark that we are very grateful to the community for having passed the Measure R, and we'll make sure that we put it to good use for sure. No question about it.
Thank you, Trustee Rodriguez. If this report hasn't convinced the public, I don't know what will. Any more comments from my colleagues? All right, that concludes our presentations this evening. Thank you. Thank you for your service to our community, both of you. It's much appreciated. Have a wonderful evening. All right, that concludes our presentations this evening, and we now get to move on to the consent calendar, item I, item numbers 5 through 14. I know that there are comments that wish to be made on some of them, but does any council member wish to remove any of them prior to our vote this evening? Hearing none, I will now take comments on any of the items before we proceed to a motion to proceed to a vote. Council Member Landsberg, I believe you might have had some questions on a couple items.
I think my questions were answered, but I did want to recognize an email from the public, particularly Mr. Mark Allman.
Yes.
To us to endorse number 8, which is the resolution in support of the energy efficiency. I want to acknowledge his comment. Appreciate the comment from Mr. Allman. That's all.
Thank you. Any other member of the council have a comment on any of the items we're going to be voting on? If not, I'd like to mention that I did receive an email this past week, perhaps others did as well, from a member of the public, Bruce Jacks, who provided a email input onto items on our agenda at our prior meeting, and his email input was not acknowledged at the meeting. I want to apologize to him for that. And I just want to make sure that whenever we do receive emails about items on our agenda, that we take care to acknowledge them when the items are under consideration by our council. We do get many things. There's no criticism of anybody here. It's just was an oversight. So our apologies to Mr. Jacks. All right. May I have a motion to approve items 5 through 14?
Mayor Stallard, I do have a quick question.
Yes, please proceed.
So, and I apologize if this is not the appropriate time. I'm new still, but we are item 6. We're approving the minutes of the Sustainability Advisory Committee, and I noticed in the minutes that there seems to be a concern about their role, and I'm just hoping that in the future that the council can provide them with some more direction. It sounds like, and so I just wanted to point that out.
I really appreciate you bringing that up. I actually sent an email to Ms. Grandia, the member who made the comment, telling her I hope we could do a better job of making good use of her time and her service on this commission. So, but I would leave it to staff to work to make sure that we're respecting the time of those who volunteer for this committee.
Thank you.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Thank you, Councilmember Garcia Cadena. Is there a second to the motion?
Motions to second.
All right.
Motion.
And the second was by Councilmember Fernandez. And this is items 5 through 14. Further discussion? There being none, all in favor? Oh, let's have the roll call, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Vega,
Aye.
Councilmember Fernandez,
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia Cadena,
Aye.
Councilmember Landsberg,
Aye.
Mayor Stallard.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the consent calendar, taking us to item J, the reports of the city manager. We have 4 remaining items to be dealt with this evening. Let's start with an update on COVID and hopefully more good news, Ken.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to, give the council a real brief update again, and largely positive. We continue to see good trends relative to the spread of the virus here in our community. So if you can hopefully see the screen here. So this is a county's dashboard, and displayed here is the countywide metrics, total cases, test positivity rate, and most notably the total hospitalized here. I do want to, acknowledge we have seen a very positive trend in terms of hospitalizations throughout county. And so currently we only have 1 individual who is being treated at a hospital for COVID. The graph that you see here at the lower part of the screen shows the reported cases over time, and the big spike that occurred over the holiday season, you can see graphically is trending down significantly. And so much so that we are now in a condition where, given the state's blueprint for reopening, if our adjusted case rate, which is currently at 3.3, and compared to last week, we were a little bit higher at 4.0. These colors actually correspond to the state's blueprint for reopening. Currently, we're in the red tier. If our metrics continue to trend where they are currently, we may find ourselves as early as March 24th next week transitioning into the orange tier. So the case positivity rate continues to be a very healthy, below 1%. And then the health equity quartile positivity rate, 2.7. So all very good metrics and good news for Yolo County. And as we continue to see some of the counties around us finally starting to catch up with us in transitioning from purple to red. So we're fortunate. And I think a lot of this is, of course, attributable to how our community is stepping up and adhering to the best practices in terms of distancing and masking and sanitization. So acknowledge the community's work in that. Obviously, most of the attention in conversation now is around access to the vaccine, and we're starting to see significant improvement in terms of number of doses provided to our county, both through the health system, the county's allocation, but also now through the pharmacies throughout our community. As of today, the latest numbers we hear, the county has now administered countywide 28,285 doses of the vaccine, compared to Dignity, who has reported they've now exceeded 30,000 doses administered. So there's a combination of both first and second doses. So we're starting to see a significant positive trend, including this week alone, the county administered 3,400 first doses and 2,500 second doses. So those are significantly increased over what we were seeing back in January and February. All that is certainly good news as we try to achieve ultimately a herd immunity and be in a condition where these numbers and these metrics that we see will allow us to sustain in those tiers. The county will be administering 2 mass points of distribution at Pioneer High School coming up on March 18th. They will be providing a mass distribution for persons in the age range of 16 to 64 with severe health conditions. So if you fall into that category, please go online and register for your vaccine on March 18th at Pioneer High School through the county. And then the second opportunity will be on the 20th of March, again at Pioneer High School. The county will be providing an MPOD or mass point of distribution for those that fall into the phase 1B tier 1 category. So we continue to, again, see, I think, good progress with respect to the vaccine distribution here in our county. And want to give a shout out, especially to Dignity Health last week, who reached out with basically a plea to help them get access to folks in our food and ag industry, as they were granted a significant allotment of vaccine and they needed to get that out. And so we were able to mobilize through our food front partners, our top food and ag companies to get access and set up for vaccine through Dignity. And good reports from all the companies. They couldn't have been treated better by Dignity, and their employees certainly were pleased to be able to get access and appreciated for the cities facilitating that. So we want to continue to encourage folks as they become eligible for the vaccine to reach out to their healthcare provider or the county or through their local pharmacies. These are all options for individuals to get access and sign up for appointments for the vaccine. And then do want to say lastly, at the joint meeting last Thursday with the school board, there was a request for us to prepare a joint statement on behalf of the city council and the board of trustees. The board of trustees will be taking up that in terms of what kind of information or content do they want to put out in that joint letter at their meeting this week. And I'll be conversing with Superintendent Pritchard to help draft a letter, and we'll be seeking council input again on what that messaging might look like. Ultimately, that joint letter will have ideally all council signatures on it, so I will be bringing that forward to the City Council on April 6th for council's final consideration and signing thereafter. So that concludes this week's update on COVID-19. Certainly welcome any questions from the council.
Ken, I'd like to lead off with a question. That health equity quartile, can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, so I can try. I think it has largely to do with an assessment of, how case positivity and cases are showing up within certain communities of vulnerability. So if there's a disconnect between a higher number of cases, say in certain populations within a community that don't have access to healthcare, they show a much higher percentage in that category sometimes. So the state's being very careful and sensitive to making sure that all within our communities are getting access to healthcare and whatnot. So.
All right, well, thank you for that. Colleagues, any questions of our city manager on this issue?
Hernandez.
Please proceed, Vicki.
Thank you, Mayor Stallard. I just wanted to also mention that Woodland Community College is providing a clinic beginning March 22nd. I think that was mentioned at a 3x2x2. So it'll go from 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock in the evening in the building 800 through September. And again, targeting farm workers and ag workers, I think specifically, I think was kind of the focus. And they also are providing a rapid testing at Woodland Community College parking lot starting last Saturday, the 13th. So every Saturday, you can, if you are, again, focusing on our community of ag workers, I think was the focus in Woodland. So at the parking lot starting every Saturday from now until, I'm not sure when, if maybe Ken or Myra remembers, but I think that was mentioned by President Pimentel.
Yeah, I believe that's correct. And we'll follow up and confirm that that starts, I believe, this Saturday. And we'll be sharing that as well through our communications with our business community.
All right, additional questions? All right, thank you. That's a wonderful report. We've had enough bad news in the last several months, so it's great to have this good news starting to come our way. We'll now move on to item 16. This is to introduce.
Mayor Stallard, this is Anna. I do have an email related to this.
Thank you for making sure we got to it. Thank you. Public comment.
Okay. I'll go ahead and read it. Dear City Council, I have been pleased that the city posted signs in the local parks last spring 2020 that acknowledged the risk of spread of the coronavirus, but directed parents to exercise their own judgment as to whether to use the playground equipment. I think it would have been best if the city took that tact with the businesses and other venues in the city. That being said, from this time on, open everything up. Are adults incapable of deciding if a gym, barbershop, restaurant, playground, team sport, or swimming pool is safe enough? Use at your own risk is a good motto. Sincerely, Carolyn Madsen.
Thank you, Ms. Madsen, for your input. We appreciate it. All right. Any additional comments?
None.
All right. If that is the case, we will move on again to item 16 to introduce and waive the first reading of an ordinance amending certain sections of the municipal code relating to water theft. And I think this is a pretty self-explanatory report, so perhaps just a quick synopsis will be sufficient for us tonight. Ken?
Yeah, so happy to provide a synopsis, and then Ethan Walsh, City Attorney, is also available. So as part of our ongoing efforts to be good managers and stewards of the water system that we have available to us, we've identified a need to incorporate stronger provisions to address individuals who might use our water as part of our water system without permission. So the ordinance that's before you this evening provides some fine structures to address individuals who use that without permission and therefore considered theft of our water. So this will be added to an ordinance that also has provisions that provide fine structures for individuals who obstruct or in some other way impact our water system. In this case, the fine structure that's being put forth starts with an initial fine of $1,000 upon verification of theft, escalating to $3,000. So it gives the city the ability to have us impose those fines, whereas currently we do not have that ability. And certainly the importance of not just conserving water, but making sure that those that use our water are held accountable and also contribute financially to maintaining our system. So with that, I don't know, Mr. Walsh or Public Works Director Craig Locke, if there's anything I left out of importance to share with the council, please offer that up now.
I think that was a good summary, Ken. The basics of the ordinance are that they explicitly call out specific provisions to prevent people from actually stealing water from the city, which weren't available previously, and to implement the more severe fines for that type of behavior. We've essentially set the fines at about the maximum level that we can as a city. Cities are allowed to designate violations of their code as misdemeanors as a maximum kind of measure. And we've set the fines at the maximum level that we can levy for misdemeanor violations of the code. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if the council has any. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Members of the council, do you have any further questions about this issue? All right, well, we want to take good care of our water, and we don't really appreciate people using it illegally. So we're modernizing our ordinance essentially to allow us to respond appropriately. Is there a motion to adopt the recommended action to introduce and waive the first reading of this ordinance? Are you also
Mayor, just to clarify, to check if there's any public comment.
I guess I'm forgetting. Madam Clerk?
No, no public comment.
No public comment. Thank you for reminding me, Mr. Walsh. Do I have a motion?
Landsberg will make the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Landsberg. Second?
Vega will second.
Thank you, Councilmember Vega. We have a motion and a second to adopt the recommended action for item 16 to introduce and waive the first reading of the ordinance that will make these changes to our municipal code relating to water theft. Further discussion?
No.
There being none, all in favor say aye. Oh, let's have the roll call, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Vega?
Aye.
Councilmember Fernandez?
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia Cadena?
Aye.
Councilmember Landsberg?
Aye, and I like the hair, Craig.
Mayor Stallard?
Aye.
Thank you.
Craig, did you get your haircut also down there at St. Baldrick's?
I did, and so did Jack in IT as well.
Well, thank you for making sure we got due notice of that. Thank you. I can't have Jay having all the credit. he's doing the IT for our meeting tonight, so I wanted to make sure he got mentioned. But thank you so much for your kindness in supporting that cause as well. All right, we'll move along to item 17. This is the Permanent Supportive Housing Project, an MOU for Phase 2 infrastructure and award of construction contract for Permanent Supportive Housing Project Phase 2. And Mr. Manager, would you introduce this, please?
Happy to, as Steve Coyle preps for the PowerPoint presentation. We have a few slides, but certainly don't need to remind the council that the East Beamer Way Permanent Supportive Housing project has been a top priority for the council for over a year now. We've made significant progress in 2020 with building the shelter. Now the next phase of the project is to implement infrastructure necessary on the balance of the property to support the permanent supportive housing units, 61 units in partnership with Friends of the Mission, as well as the last phase of the project, which will include Walter's House. So very thrilled to be before you this evening with several actions that allow a very significant milestone to move forward with that next phase of the 61 units. So with that, Steve, would you like to walk the council through the actions for this evening?
Good evening, Steve.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members, and thank you, Ken. And I think Jay will control my slides for me. He has them. If not, he can give me control and I'll do them. So I'll just have a few slides to set this up.
Steve, this is Jay. You can share your screen.
Okay, very good. Give me just 1 second and I'll be right with you. So you've seen these slides before, the East Beamer Way. Sorry, give me just a minute here so I can get it on the screen properly.
Just giving us a seventh inning stretch, Steve, so it's okay.
Steve, this is Jay. I didn't realize you sent it to me. I can bring it up right now. Just a moment.
I got it right here. All right, you got it?
We're seeing the slides now.
Okay, I'll just take over here. You've seen this slide before. This is our three-part East Bimmerway campus, the shelter, which has been occupied since January 4th. The next step is the 61 units of permanent supportive housing and the small community center, which is the next phase. So just to place the context here, you see the shelter to the lower, just to the lower left, and then the housing site I've circumscribed, and that's where the site infrastructure will take place, and then the treatment center will take place just beyond that. So the housing will follow the site infrastructure. And here's a plan, just a plan that I rendered that shows you the built out project with the current shelter to the left. And then the plan is to build a future shelter addition and to remove the current trailers. And then you see the 61 units of permanent supportive housing and the community center, which is now what we're doing the site infrastructure for, which will consist of the grading, the finished grading, putting all the utilities in, and putting the streets and the sidewalks in. And then Walter's House will follow probably in 2022. So our intention is to finish all of the housing by the end of the year, by the end of December 2021. This just goes to, just wanted to briefly touch on the budget because it's such an important part of what you have before you tonight. So you see we have a total cost of the site infrastructure of $3,161,000, and we have the funding available now through a combination of sources to pay for that. And I just want to point out that the City Affordable Housing Fund of $1,482,000 is supplemented by the Partnership Health Plan grant of about almost $326,000. And then the Friends of the Mission grant funds are about $1,353,000 that will cover the rest of the cost of the phase two. So we have the funds in place to cover the cost of the site infrastructure. And then Friends of Mission will follow with the contract for the permanent supportive housing, which is a modular housing product, which will probably begin installation sometime, I would guess, in late summer, early fall. So before you tonight, we have 4 resolutions. The first one is a memorandum of understanding with Friends of the Mission, and you received that in your packet. The second resolution is approving the appropriation of the $1,482,000 from the Homeless Housing Fund, and the appropriation of $1,353,356, and then finally additional funds as necessary to complete the housing project that will be provided by Friends of the Mission. Third, and perhaps most important at this junction in time, is awarding a construction contract in the amount of $2,324,500 to Lister Construction, who is the low bidder for the site infrastructure, and to authorize a contract contingency up to 15%. We bumped the contingency up from 10 to 15% just to cover any unknowns as we move forward, and we're hoping not to have to use that. And then finally, the council needs to authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Unico Engineering that will assist us in the management and inspection of the ongoing work, since much of it is the underground utilities and the paving and grading for the project. So that's the end of my presentation, and I'm ready for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Steve. If we could stop the sharing of the screen, that would be helpful. Thank you. Let's go back to the gallery view of the council, please. Thank you. And what I'd like to invite my colleagues, if any of you have questions of Steve Coyle about our work there at the East Beamer Wade housing area. Councilmember Landsberg.
Good evening, Mr. Coyle. The units themselves, are we still looking at the local builder? And if so, have they started?
Councilmember Landsberg, cutting edge modular homes is will be contracting with Friends of the Mission to supply the modular homes. These are modular, not manufactured, so they're built to the California residential code. So they have to meet Title 24 and all of the energy and structural codes. So I believe that Friends of Mission intends to execute that contract probably within a month or two, so that they can begin forward and move forward in ordering materials.
Is there a prototype though at their site?
There's no prototype. Interesting question, Mayor. Friends of the Mission and the city intend to create a prototype through a Cutting Edge, actually paid for by Friends of the Mission, and install that as much as possible, probably install that off-site, but it'll give the council members, the public, a chance to tour a duplex, which are essentially two tiny homes that are joined end to end. Each one is a little less than 400 square feet, but they're one-bedroom units with complete kitchens and bathrooms. So hopefully that prototype model will be up. We're looking sometime perhaps in July to actually have something that people can walk through, because it's really important that people can actually see the kind of product that Cutting Edge will be providing.
Thank you. Colleagues, additional questions? Madam Clerk, are there any public comments on this item?
No, none.
I have a question for our counselor. Can we do this all in one motion?
Yes.
All right. Then if there are no further comments, would anybody care to move that we adopt the recommended action? I see Councilmember Fernandez raising her hand. So
I'd like
on her, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the resolutions listed 1 through 4.
Thank you. Second to Councilmember Fernandez's motion.
Vega seconds.
Councilmember Vega seconds the motion. Is there further discussion on this issue? First of all, let me say thank you, Steve Coyle, for the presentation and all the hard work that's gone to making this possible. All right, without any further discussion, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Vega?
Aye.
Councilmember Fernandez?
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia Cadena?
Aye.
Councilmember Landsberg?
Aye.
Mayor Stallard?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So that brings us to our final item of the evening, item 18, City Council Priority Goals, Strategic Actions. And thank you, Mr. Manager, for taking our input and putting it on paper.
Yeah, no, thank you. And maybe before we move on, I just want to pause and take a quick second to acknowledge Friends of the Mission and the board for their just overwhelmingly solid dedication to deliver this project in partnership with us. There's been a great collaboration. And anyways, I wanted to make sure we acknowledged all the great work that they put into it. And it's been a great collaboration. So
Another example of goodness in the community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. So as tradition has had it, as the new council gets constituted every 2 years with the seating of new council members, the council and staff go through a resetting of the goals and priorities for the next 2 years of the council. And this year, the council launched into that effort with a retreat on February 20th. And prior to that retreat, the mayor and vice mayor, our Mayor Pro Tem, had some great input and insight into, let's take the opportunity for us to maybe reframe the way we approach our council priority goals and strategic plan. Specifically want to acknowledge Mayor Pro Tem Vega's effort and experience around how to conduct fruitful and engaging strategic goal setting sessions. So on February 20th, we spent a day together on a Saturday, really evaluating the current goals that the council has had and reflecting on where we are at as a community and setting some new key initiatives for the council and staff to focus on in partnership, I'll say, as a key theme throughout with our community over the coming years. And as part of that effort, there was a desire to take the 7 goal areas that have really been the guiding document of the council goals in the past and try to narrow those down to a bit more manageable, set of goal areas. And where we landed was particularly 4 distinct focus goal areas of quality of life, economic development, downtown, public safety and infrastructure, and governance and fiscal responsibility. So we took those 4 goal areas as part of the retreat and we framed some key strategies. We updated the council on current initiatives relative to these goal areas. And we discussed what are the key priority initiatives for the next 2 years that we can, as a city organization, really get our investment both in financial and human capital resource behind to have a measurable impact in each one of these 4 goal areas. So after working through that, interactive goal setting session with the council, we walked away with some refined strategy areas to focus on in each of those. Well, I'll walk the council again through each of these key strategies as well as the initiatives that came out of that. First, we landed on a quality of life goal that speaks to preserving and enhancing Woodland as an inclusive community that offers an exceptional place to live, learn, work, play, and engage for current and future generations. And to help us, live up to that goal, right? So how do we, as a city organization and as a community, implement key strategies to improve our place as a place of quality of life around these key areas? So listed here are promoting healthy and purposeful living, providing opportunities for youth to thrive, celebrate diversity through multicultural events, continually reevaluating the effectiveness of our programs and our services that we provide to the community, investing in cultural and recreational amenities that reflect our community and community's desires, and then focus on sustainability and resiliency to climate change moving forward. Since if we are not diligent in that, right, much of the quality of life that we experience here could be compromised. So these were the 6 different sort of key strategies. We could list 3 or 4 pages of strategies that address quality of life, but I think these summed those up quite well. And so we took the feedback from the council at the retreat and tried to distill those into some succinct statements. And then moving into, how do we, and now what, right? How do we implement specific actions over the next 2 years to address those? So the council spoke a fair bit about, the power of, implementing events. And as part of the retreat, we heard great feedback from community members around how much they miss gathering as a community at community events and how great it would be to, post-pandemic, be able to bring the community back together. But maybe let's think about doing events in a way that celebrate our cultural diversity here in this community. And so the council said, let's think about how we could use events in a multicultural context around food, which has a power of bringing people together, and launch that new event or series of events in the next 2 years. Also talked a lot about how to leverage the talent and the desire of our community members to engage with the city in advancing quality of life opportunities. Formalizing our volunteer programs or internship programs are great ways to allow our community members to be active participants as part of our our municipal governments and community structures to improve our quality of life. And so let's really double down on how do we engage our community through volunteers and internships and empower them to be part of the process. We also talked about promoting engagement and awareness through improved multilingual communications. So again, recognizing that we need to be better at communicating with our constituents throughout the community in every population group. And so let's be conscious of that and make a tangible effort at improving how we communicate with our community. Evaluating different models to deliver impactful and inclusive programming to reach more residents. So let's evaluate who we are reaching right now, what we should be doing to maybe reach populations that are not engaging or not plugging into the programs and services that we have, and really be intentional about how we structure those programs to ensure that we're capturing as many people in this community as we can in our programming. It goes without saying, right? How do we improve citizen engagement through public meetings, but more, again, in an active capacity through commissions and committees, volunteer cleanup opportunities. So let's think about how we can bring the community and empower them to make a difference in our community. And then lastly, address community needs for childcare. This has been, acutely identified as a need in our community and across Yolo County, right? I don't think it's unique even just to Woodland, but the ability for families to access childcare, particularly in the younger years of life before they reach school age, is a need and a pain point that we need to, potentially not take ownership of providing that care, but helping to facilitate the analysis and discussion and implementing, or supporting others in our community implementing childcare programs to help supporting our families and youth. So the next goal area was economic development in downtown, and summarized in consensus form in a statement that says support a vibrant economy throughout the city with a diversified economic base, offering a range of employment opportunities and business services, and revitalize downtown as the heart of the community and center of civic activity. So what are key strategies for us to address this in a proactive manner? Cultivating our existing businesses is something that always bears fruit and often gets forgotten about in economic development efforts. A lot of attention gets paid towards recruiting new companies to our community, but the biggest return on investment in supporting our business community is actually supporting those that are already here and helping them to thrive and expand when ready. Also strengthening, again, our communications and relationships with the entire business community. So there was discussion with the council about how do we make sure that the disparate sort of business districts that we have and business clusters that we have throughout our community feel like they're getting the attention and the needs addressed that they may have in their unique context. So how do we connect with those individual business clusters throughout our community? And so that's a key strategy, again, to build stronger economic development base in this community in a sense of community. And then develop Woodland as a visitor destination. Our hotel economy was very strong pre-COVID, and we were seeing significant interest in building additional hotels. And then when the pandemic hit, clearly one of the hardest hit industries has been the hospitality industry, and our hotels have not been immune to that. So how do we, promote, rebuilding that economy and that portion of our economy through visitor destination efforts in partnership with Visit Woodland, as well as Visit YOLO. And it ties, I think, uniquely to, what experiences can we offer as a community, whether it be through various unique events or activities that we can offer in this community that might inspire people to come and spend some time here and enjoy the historic small town character that we have while enjoying some of the great food that we have to offer. So doubling down on visitor destination. And then expanding digital and technology-based economy. There's been, of course, a lot of talk ever since the general plan priorities and policies spoke to diversifying our economic base and our job base for the new economy, and be much more intentional and proactive about attracting these types of companies and helping those companies that we already have in this community that are digitally based and technology based, and will provide the careers and jobs of the future for our youth. And then lastly, in that, right, how do we build new programs to train the workforce of the future that support our unique economy that we have in this community, and build different models, honestly, to train the workforce that we have, and even the youth in our community that may be choosing an alternative path to traditional education, but have tremendous skill sets to offer to our workforce. So translating into 4 key initiatives for the next 2 years, key theme will be identifying the workforce development needs and then building programs that align with those needs in partnership with the community college, the county, as well as the school district, as well as other partners to build a workforce development program that may be specifically tailored to what we need in this community, and the opportunities we have within our existing population to build a new economy. And then strengthen communication engagement with businesses in all sectors and geographic areas needs to occur. And then implementing new marketing and events and promotions that drive increased business activity in hotel stays. So the last 2 goal areas are public safety infrastructure, and then governance and fiscal responsibility. On the public safety and infrastructure front, obviously one of the core responsibilities of any local government is to ensure a safe and resilient community, but doing that through the delivery of quality public services, as well as the infrastructure that our community relies on to ensure the protection of our community from risk or harm. So I think a well-framed sort of goal statements, and then strategies to advance that would include assessing our public safety service delivery models for improved efficiencies and effectiveness. Our society and the way that we, as a society, rely on our services is changing rapidly, and so some of the models that have been around for many years maybe need to be looked at to figure out how we can address those changes in how we as a community expect to be protected. And then investing in programs that support youth and families is a core principle to ensuring that the youth in our community feel safe and welcome in this community, and are feeling as protected as the older folks in the community as well. Of course, advocating in support of the DA's 5-point plan on homelessness was a council action taken early this year. So what is the next step for us to continue to support the district attorney's plan? And that may come in the form of advocacy at the state level or the county level to deploy a pilot program with some of those principles that he outlined. And communicating and educating, again, sort of a common theme with our public around neighborhood safety. So there was mention earlier this evening about us doubling down on neighborhood watch programs and addressing traffic calming concerns within our neighborhoods. So how can we, again, support our individual residents in our neighborhoods to take ownership of their own safety in their neighborhoods and partner with them? And then ensuring infrastructure is adequately maintained and remains in compliance with regulatory requirements. Sounds like a no-brainer, but it's becomes increasingly difficult as the state continues to layer on additional requirements of our community that often are not provided with any funding or resources to do that. So casting those in the frame of a priority initiative set for the next 2 years, evaluating industry best practices and public safety service delivery models, and then identifying potential opportunities to adapt or expand our capacities based on what we learned through that process. Advocating to the state for maintenance of Cache Creek. Again, another key priority that the council has been dedicated to for over 10 years now is to ensure protection of the north area of our community from flooding from Cache Creek. So as we take the next step in that project, we need to also advocate for maintenance of the creek itself while we're pursuing the protection through the flood protection measure. Educating our citizens on flood risks and importance of flood protection to secure funding for design and construction of the flood protection project will be front and center for the next several years as we again move forward and really engaging with the residents that are within that floodplain. As Mayor Stollard mentioned, wanting to understand from them, what are the impacts from an insurance standpoint or a cost standpoint that they're exposed to, and then how do we better educate on the potential for the flood project to improve their potential protection from risk. And then lastly, continue and invest in projects to improve the efficiency and resiliency of the city's water system. As we, head into what appears to be yet another dry year, our ability to provide safe, clean, and reliable water is going to be top of mind, I believe, through this year and potentially likely into next year until we see a significant shift in weather pattern. And then we'll close with governance and fiscal responsibility. So the goal statement of promoting a local government and city organization that is committed to transparency and fiscal responsibility while meeting the needs of the community with effective delivery of services. Certainly a laudable a goal, and one that I think on most accounts, we score pretty well on, but we can always be better at that. And a lot of that starts with, being better at how we communicate and provide facts to our community and be more proactive with disseminating that information rather than often finding ourselves in a reactionary mode. Utilizing our city boards and commissions more effectively. I think we had some conversation earlier in the meeting around, sustainability committee feeling maybe disconnected a bit from priorities that the council may have. So let's re-engage with our commissions, with the council and staff, and support them, refine their work plans in a way that they feel that they're in close alignment with what our priorities are as a council and the staff. And then deploy them to go out and advance and help us advance actions in these goal areas. And then streamline the budget process while maintaining transparency. So as budgets get increasingly complex, how do we continue to frame that budget process in a way that the public feels that they understand the city's fiscal condition, and that we're doing a great job of being stewards of the finances that we have with us, and do that in a way that does not discourage participation or comprehension around the issues in our fiscal future. And then conclude here with conduct regular assessments of effective governance and services. So always good for us to evaluate the way we do things, how we do things, to inform how we can continue to improve. So the last three initiatives that the council helped frame through the retreat would be to conduct comprehensive evaluation of our communication efforts, and then develop a coordinated plan and framework to ensure timely and broad-based dissemination of information throughout our community. Evaluating our boards and commissions, and then strengthening the alignment of them with our council goals and priorities. And then, of course, maintaining a balanced budget while strategically investing in projects and programs that yield long-term fiscal, social, and/or environmental returns. So this constitutes what the council framed as their priority goals and strategic plan for the next 2 years. With the council's adoption or acceptance of these this evening, and we certainly welcome continued refinement. The next step will be for the city to, the staff to take these the strategic actions and then build out an action plan for the next 2 years to allow us to build responsibility and timeframes and specific action steps to ensure that we advance these in and amongst all the other responsibilities and tasks that we have before us. We will also be using this set of goals and strategic actions to inform budget for this year. So we'll be heading straight into our spring budget workshop at the next meeting. So we will be looking at our budget flexibilities with the lens of how can we invest, what budget flexibility we have to help support these goals and priorities over the next 2 years. And then the last piece, again, want to give credit to Mayor Pro Tem Vega for saying, let's create some way to have us measure through metrics or different indicators, how we are progressing in terms of making a measurable impact, positive or negative, in each of these goal areas, and then report that out on a regular basis in a very digestible format. So we will also be developing some form of monitoring system that we can then report out to the council and the community on how we're trending relative to having a positive impact in these goal areas, or if we're falling short, right? That's often even better for us to be trending and identifying those trends. So we'll be working with staff internally and certainly seeking council feedback on what are those key metrics that we need to be pointing to give us the indication how we're performing. And then we'll build a robust sort of reporting mechanism to continue to share that with the community and get their feedback. So I will conclude there and open it back up to the council for comment and input, and look forward to rolling up our sleeves over the next 2 years and making progress on these.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Please return the screen to gallery view. Thank you. That was comprehensive. You made us sound better than I thought we did during our day, which started, I think, at 8:30 in the morning and went till 3 in the afternoon. It was a comprehensive discussion, and I think you've summarized it quite well. I also thank Mayor Pro Tem Vega for sharing her professional expertise with us. I think it was a good start. Colleagues, do you have questions of the manager? Yeah. Oh, Mayor Pro Tem Vega.
Mayor Stellar. So, City Manager, thank you so much. I hadn't seen this summary view, and although I reflect on our planning session, you did a really good job. So thank you for really throwing all of this into a very comprehensive presentation. And I'm really excited for what's coming. You know, I think something that I shared with my colleagues and with you during the retreat and leading up to it. You know, this is an important time for us to focus our efforts. You know, a lot of times, you know, we want to have a lot of focus areas or a lot of goals, and that really dilutes our focus. So, you know, I think really synthesizing and setting our focus areas around these goals is gonna help us achieve more. And I'm looking forward to the reporting and the tracking of our progress. So thank you again, and thanks to staff for all of the work that they have put into it and will put into fleshing out this plan. Thank you, Mayor Saller. That'll be all.
Thank you. Additional comment? Councilmember Fernandez, and then Councilmember Garcia Cadena.
Well, I have a question regarding economic development, and it could be maybe something that we discuss later, but the thought that came to me when I was reviewing some of the contracts and the construction bids that we got, some of the agencies or companies are from outside Woodland. And so I know we go with the lowest bidder because it's the most economically practical thing to do. But I wonder that, I wonder that when we look at economic development as a city, can we or should we focus on supporting local businesses, and when there are maybe 2 or 3 construction companies who put out a bid on sites within our community that has city funding. I know that we're not necessarily choosing them because they have a higher bid, but I would think that perhaps in the long run that it would provide economic development for our community, and those dollars would stay within Woodland, and it shows that we're supporting local businesses and that we as a city are promoting those companies who reside in our community and who have invested interest in our community. So I think that that was just something that kind of came into mind as I looked at all the various bidders and realized that the company that we chose is from Vacaville, and the companies that were from Woodland were slightly higher, but maybe to look at that as a possibility, or as a maybe point system, that maybe if you're a local business owner, that maybe we would consider giving that opportunity to local businesses. So maybe this is not the time to bring up that kind of question, but that kind of came to mind, is that, if we want to encourage businesses within our own community, that maybe they may not be the cheapest, but it may be in turn balance out where we're providing an opportunity for local businesses to thrive, and it comes back in our tax base or in our revenues in other manners, because those dollars are being spent within our community.
You raise a fair point. In fact, we do have a preference for buying vehicles. If a local dealership is within, I think it's 5 or 10% of a competing bid that's out of the city, we can favor the local bidder. Mr. Walsh, are we able to assert a preference, a point preference on contractor type contracts?
Thank you, Mayor. No, we aren't permitted to do that on construction contracts, and there are, you're right, Councilmember Fernandez, that's probably a conversation that we should have in a little more detail, that's would benefit from a more involved discussion and probably some background material, because there are a fair bit of restrictions on our ability to provide preferences based on geographic location. But we do have some flexibility of the type that Mayor Stallard mentioned. So we could certainly have some conversation. But on construction contracts, the rules for those are fairly strict, and they're set forth by state law, and we're really restricted to selecting the low bidder for those contracts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other colleagues wish to comment tonight on our goals tonight? Thank you. I forgot. Member Garcia Cadena, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Stallard. I would just like to commend the city manager and staff for putting this together as a new council member, having our goals and strategic actions just so well thought out and written here for us is just really helpful. I was going through this, and it seems like a very positive move for the council, and I appreciate the way that it's all put together here. So thank you very much for the work that you did.
Thank you, Council Member Garcia Cadena. Any additional comments? Okay.
I do have
I'm going to ask if we had public comment. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
I'll go ahead and read it. Thank you. Dear City Council, I am concerned about the PowerPoint presentation under item 18 on the agenda. On goal 3, public safety infrastructure initiatives, the graphic includes advocate for legislative changes to criminal justice system. What advocacy this is about is not clear from the PowerPoint. I would encourage the council receiving this item until the direction of the advocacy is made clear. Is it to decrease or increase funding for law enforcement? Is it to decriminalize more activities, or is it to make it possible to divert more people into mental health addiction intervention? Find out what it is before accepting it, and then put it in the document so the public knows what it is too. Sincerely, Carolyn Madsen.
Thank you for the public comment. The council has previously advocated support of the district attorney's 5-point plan on homelessness, for example. So I think we have redefine and reinvigorate wide grip collaboration. Some of these interface with issues regarding criminality and how we treat criminality. So I think I would say the council has an idea of what we want to do here, and that is to be a progressive influence in our community, to address criminal issues in a positive way that reforms behavior wherever we can, but maintains appropriate responses where needed. Now, does any other council member wish to add to that? Councilmember Landsberg?
You returned to me on that. As you know, Mr. Mayor, I'm an advocate for the district attorney's 5-point plan. And the reason for that, the plans we have seen to date haven't worked. The methods that we've tried to use in other arenas regarding our incarceration, mass incarceration, isn't working. The district attorney has developed a very thoughtful, circular, comprehensive 5-point plan that addresses a lot of these areas that, if implemented and successful, would integrate mental health services for those that need it, would integrate incarceration for those that need it, but provide a level of safety for the rest of us who live in this community. And that's paramount. I have an obligation to the community to foster such programs that are going to ensure the safety for the majority of the community. We know there's going to be scofflaws. We know there's going to be a few, but we have provisions for them. But this 5-point plan is the best plan that I've seen come down the pipe in so many years. So that's why I support it. That's why council passed it. And I'm going to continue to advocate for it. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just respectfully say to Ms. Madsen, I think the council has dug in pretty deep on this. And so, yes, there's a lot of flesh behind the bones that you're seeing here. And perhaps you can interact with us individually as you wish and learn more. Does any other council member wish to respond? All right, these are the goals. This is the work we have done. Oh, I think Councilmember Fernandez wishes to speak, please.
Yeah, I just think maybe she was referring to where it says to legislative changes. I think we kind of had the discussion about some of the laws where people were being, the release, I don't recall it exactly what it's called, but where there were incidents of various offenders that were being arrested and then released, and there was an issue. There was a conversation at one point during our retreat about some of the laws. Is it AB 47 or something?
No, that's zero bail that the legislature implemented.
Okay, zero bail.
Adopted.
So I think those were some of the discussions. Ms. Madsen is in my district, and I didn't respond, but I do recall that we had some of those discussions about the zero bail and some of the other legislative processes that were allowing people to not maybe serve the time that people may feel they should.
You know, this is a middle path. We want to be reforming conduct and healing where we can, but we also need to be strong and even firm where we need to be, those things. We certainly don't want to see people constantly damaging our community, going to jail, getting out, damaging it again, going to the jail, coming out. And I can think of a few people that we've had to deal with that are unfortunately just recidivist in their behavior. But I also want to mention that the DA's 5-point plan requires legislative assistance to implement it. And Assemblymember McCarty has a bill in which we would want to support if we truly support the district attorney's plan. So anyway, anything more from anyone else? All right, I think we've thoroughly covered that. And I thank you again, City Manager Hyatt, for the work of assembling the data and presenting it to the public tonight. Does this require a vote of our council, or is it just merely an assent to what we have been presented with?
Yeah, the recommendation is for the council to formally adopt, the strategic goals. So it's part receiving the information and two, sort of by consensus, adopting these as your goals for the next 2 years.
Let me ask council, does anyone dissent in any way from any aspect of what has been presented tonight? Mr. Manager, I think you can assume this council is in accordance with what we've presented, and that will be our marching orders going forward. They all agreed?
Agreed.
All right, and that the minutes will reflect general agreement with what was presented. Council members, before we go to adjournment, is there anything else anyone else wishes to present tonight? A memorial adjournment or other thing? All right. Seeing none, I would like to offer a couple of accommodations first. I want to join Mayor Pro Tem Vega in commending Captain Asha Whipple and Sergeant Victoria Danzel from our fire department and police department respectively. Remarkable women, great examples for young girls about what's possible. Just keep at it. That was lovely to hear about. Thank you. And then I also want to commend Terry Bassett, who's stepping down after 39 years in the transportation business. He's head of the Yola County Transportation District from its formation in the mid 90s till this coming April 2nd. He was actually a county employee before that, and he's basically created Yola Bus and many related transportation activities over a long period of time. We commend him for his service. He's a resident of Woodland in the 1st District, and we want to thank him for all he's done and wish him very well in his retirement years. And then we have 2 memorial adjournments. The first is Jake Barth. Jake Barth operated Barth Sheet Metal across from Kitchen 428 for decades and was a wonderful part of our community. Served admirably in World War II, and we'll miss Jake. And the other fellow is Bill Hollingshead. Bill, while he lived in Davis, grew up in Woodland, graduated from Woodland High School. His father, Paul, was a noted photographer, classically trained, and decided to locate in Woodland. So in this 150th year of our cityhood, many of our photos from the let's just say the late, early and middle part of the 20th century were taken by Paul Hollingshead. And Bill made a great effort to get them out and expose them to people. So we mourn the passing of both Jake Barth and Bill Hollingshead, and we commend them on their lives so well lived. With that, we are adjourned until our meeting in April, first Tuesday in April. Thank you, everyone, for your service. Good night.